And now, it's time for another Dice Tower review with Tom Vasel.
Hey folks, I'm Tom Vasel, and today we're taking a look at a very big release, the Munchkin Collectible Card Game. Now, I want to stop you right here, folks. This is not Munchkin. And in fact, I think I would have put that on the box, honestly, or something in that case, because if you love Munchkin, this is a different game than that. And if you hate Munchkin, this is a different game than that. So neither one of you should leave yet. Let's take a look at this. This is on its own two legs. This is its own game. It's using the same theme as Munchkin, the silly kind of parody on Dungeons and Dragons, but it is definitely a different game. I'm not a fan of Munchkin, but I do want you to take a look at this game, Munchkin Collectible Card Game. Now, this is going to be the first review of it. I'm going to come back and take a look at it in a couple weeks. I'm going to be taking a look at just the starter sets today and just the game itself, and not in the bigger framework of it being a collectible card game. I have a bunch of booster packs for it and a bunch of cards and building decks. I haven't done any of that yet. I got two starter sets, the Ranger and Warrior and the Cleric and Thief, and I've been playing these starter decks against each other without any modifications because I just want to see how good the game itself is. Here's how it plays. To play Munchkin CCG, you're going to need to take a hero. So here's the two heroes that come in the set here, the Ranger and the Warrior. So one person would play the Halfling Ranger, and the other person is going to play the Centaur Warrior. Each of these heroes has 20 hit points. And these tokens here, which are used anything from gold to damage and things like that, you're going to place them on them, and if you take 20 damage, then you've lost the game. Each person also has a level counter. This keeps track of your levels. You start at 1. You're going to start with 1 or 2 gold, depending on whether you go first or second, and each player gets a runaway token. And then, of course, you have a deck of 40 cards. And so you're going to be drawing 6 cards into your opening hand, 4, 5, 6, and then we start the game. Now, on your turn, if your runaway token is flipped to limp away, you will flip it back over to the other side. You will also unzap cards. As the game goes by, whenever you use cards, they're going to be zapped, where you'll turn them sideways, and so you will unzap your cards at the beginning of your turn, and sometimes things also will happen at the beginning of your turn. As the game goes by, many times cards will be placed in a stash over here. Those cards are returned to your hand at the beginning of your turn. So sometimes stash cards are cards that you use. They're going to go there and they'll come back. So once you've done that beginning of a turn, you take your main turn. So the way the turn works is you can play a lot of different cards to your hoard. Your hoard is an area behind your hero. These are cards that are going to stay out. There's different kinds of cards. There's a location card. This says this comes into play zapped, reduce the gold cost of committed monsters by 1. So this makes all monsters 1. This affects both players, actually. And you can only ever have one location in play, but you can get rid of a location. That's called squishing. Squishing is like discarding in this game, if you want to put a new location out. So you can play locations. You can also play allies. To play allies, you simply need to pay the gold cost of that ally, and you'll put them out here that says when you squish a monster controlled by your opponent, draw a card. So that's a special ability I have. You can also play loot. You'll have loot here. Now the loot, you need to have levels equal to this loot. I'm only level 1. If I was level 2, I could play it. However, if I wanted to play another piece of equipment, like this 3 here, I would need to have a level of 5, because your level, all your loot that you have in front of you, the combined levels of that loot can't be more than your level that you are in the game. But you can get rid of them. You can squish loot to put new ones out. So these are the main things you're going to be putting behind locations, allies, and loot. You also have other cards that you might be able to play that just come into play. So I'm going to just show you there's some monsters. We'll talk about them in a second. And there's also mischief, treachery cards that you can play at specific times in the game. Now, the main thing you want to do is you attack your opponent to make their life go down to less than 20. So the way you'll do that on your turn is you're going to pick a card from your hand. So this is a monster card, and I'm going to play this card here, and I'm going to put a coin on it. Now that may not even be a monster. My opponent doesn't know if it's a monster or not. It can be any card from your hand. And they have to decide what to do. Now you can always run away. And then this card, without anyone seeing what it is, goes over to my stash. It will come back in my hand next turn, and I get the money back. And you can run away multiple times, but after the first time, when you run away, you're going to take 2 damage because you're just limping away. So you only really have 1 free runaway. Or you can devote things to defend against it. So let's say my opponent plays a monster card against me. So he puts a coin on this one, Blandy McBlanderson. Now he did not need to put a coin on it, but he did it just to kind of bluff me. So Blandy McBlanderson doesn't do anything. He does no damage to me, and he takes 2 to kill him. So that was kind of a bluff thing, although there's ways to make your monsters do more damage. But if he had a monster that did damage, let's say he attacks me with Walking Dreads. So he attacks me. Now when he puts this down, I can decide to let it go through. If I let it go through, and I don't run away, then I'm going to take this damage, 1. And he's going to then put this card in his stash, where it will go back to his hand. And that's kind of a bad thing. I don't want to let monsters come through. If he reveals it, if I let it go through and he reveals it and it is not a monster, or he doesn't have enough money to pay for the monster that he put down, then that's cheating, and he's going to take 2 damage. So you can bluff your opponent, but if they call your bluff, you're going to take 2 damage, and the card goes to the stash. If I decide I'm going to block it, I can block it with loot, and I can block it with allies. Allies will suck up the damage before it's done to me, and loot can suck up some of the damage in armor and can also do damage to the other person. In this case, the Hydrax is not going to really do much damage, but it can block 1 damage done by my opponent. So as time goes by, you're going to see all sorts of cards in your deck, and you're going to have bigger monsters that will come out. This inflatable dragon will do 2. And if I overpaid for it, it gains 2 more attacks. So if I paid 3 for the inflatable dragon, it will do 4 attack. We have Punchy McPunchface, a Tavern Brawl here, where your target opponent takes 1 damage for each monster in their stash. Thwack, I can zap a weapon I control to deal damage to that weapon to any target. Each person also has the opportunity to use your hero. The red hero here, for example, I can zap it to do 1 damage to a target hero or monster. The Halfling Ranger, whenever one of my monsters is killed, I can zap and regenerate that monster, and where I stash it instead of moving it to the discard pile. So when a monster is killed, I don't have to discard it. I'll be able to get it and play it again next turn. You can get really cool weapons like this Whack-A-Mole, Bodyguard, this ally here, a budget Sasquatch. So you can see, obviously, with the chainsaw bloody dismemberment, there's going to be humorous things that show up in this game. The gazebo, which has a great long history in Dungeons & Dragons. Land, Vanilla Mental here, a really powerful one, no special abilities, but if I put 4 coins down, and you know I have the Villamental in my hand, you're going to sit there and go, did he play that, or is he just bluffing me? Because it's an interesting thing, and I have to decide whether to run away, block it, or what have you. And so you're just going to keep doing this back and forth. At the end of your turn, you will increase 1 level. You will take coins equal to your level, so you don't get to soar coins from turn to turn. You're just going to have coins each turn equal to your level until you get to level 10. But I don't think I've ever seen a game go to level 10. And eventually, 1 person will be defeated. Now, I don't like the box that this comes in because, as you see, it even got ripped trying to open it with the things. But that's not that big of a deal because most people don't keep these games in these boxes anyway. You're going to probably keep it in a card box or something. The rules themselves, I like to talk about them. The rules are written okay, but they're written in the glossary and keywords. It's very useful, but they just have they're very clinically written. And I know they're written like that for tournaments and CCGs and things like that. They have to be written that way, but I just think the game could have been written in a nicer, easier to understand thing. This is okay, but I had to go watch a video online to make sure I was doing everything properly. I mean, some of it's really good, but I think they could take a lesson from Magic the Gathering has a really simple rules explanation. And I understand that when you have a CCG, you're going to have all these interrupts and timing issues and all that stuff. And this would be good, but I think a very simple how to play the game would have helped. These gold tokens and things, they're okay. The artwork is good. It's kind of a step up. I mean, Munchkin artwork is pretty simple. But a lot of this is not even done by John Kovalik, who did most of the Munchkin artwork. You can see the artist down here. I'm pretty happy with the artwork. It looks good. It's silly. It's funny. And it has it's kind of like Munchkin with a slight upgrade in style, I guess. Maybe, I don't know how to word it, like 3D type things. I've been showing you the one deck. Let me show you some of the stuff in the other one here. There's a lot of the same cards in each deck, so obviously you're going to want to probably change some things to make your deck different than others. The game comes with a booster pack. Here's one booster pack. This is the one that came with this particular set. So you can see this is the There's different cards that are in here, and some of the same cards, 3,872 orcs came in some of the starting decks, but the Stomp, 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 which is a rare card, and that's very specific. When you're building a deck, it's going to go for that character. And it will show you there's different symbols on these to show what cards can go into what decks and things like that. So if I'm just playing this without the bigger collectible card game thing in, I like it. It's a simple game. Obviously, it's copying Magic the Gathering. I mean, Zap as compared to Tap. And you both have 20 life points, and you're attacking each other. The cards themselves, like I said, had that Munchkin theme to them. There's no cards here that are like uber powerful, although I think that there's probably cards in the greater scheme of things. But just looking at this as a game, from a gamer's standpoint, this game really boils down to one mechanism, and that is bluffing. Now, happily, I like bluffing, so I like this game. I don't think this game is great. I don't think it adds anything amazing to the genre, but it's an amusing way to spend time playing against another person to kind of bluff them. So the first turn of the game or so, you're building up. Maybe you can attack on the first turn. Not very often, but sometimes. Turn 2, you're starting to attack. Turn 3, you're definitely attacking. And each turn, you have more attacks to make. And your opponent is sitting there going, okay, I know they have that big creature. They just put 3 coins on that thing. That could be it. Do I run away from that? Do I try to stop it? Or do I let it go through? To me, this whole thing is just amusing as all get out. It's fun to make somebody run from nothing. It's fun to see someone get caught, although I found that I'm very, very bad at this and I get caught all the time. But I just like that whole idea of, well, I got this extra loot card in my hand. I'm just going to put it out there as a monster. And you're trying to figure out what to do. There's a die included with the game. There's some random die attacks. There's bigger attacks. There's monsters that give you special things. But the game is never overwhelming, right? I never sit there and go, oh, there's 7 or 8 different special abilities. Each of the decks has a slight difference of flair, and I'm sure that these differences are going to grow when you add the whole collectible card game. But like the Warrior has kind of it feels like the red decks in Magic where you're trying to burn, just hit your opponent for damage. The green, I'm not sure what the green, the Ranger, but he's like monsters, I guess, and they're coming out. I guess it's similar to green in Magic too, but they do feel different. Again, this is going to be compared to Magic a lot just because it's a collectible card game and there's very few card games out there, and it has some of the same objects. So I think of this as Magic the Gathering, but you don't know what creatures your opponent's attacking with. And you have to stop them at some point, and how are you going to do that? Gameplay does not take long. I would say once you know what you're doing, we're talking 20-minute games, probably, maybe 30 minutes at the most, depending on how much thought you put into them. And they're pretty quick. Like I said, the game really escalates quick. By the time you're at level 5, you can hit with 2 or 3 monsters on a turn, or level 6. It just keeps going and going, and eventually you're like, okay, I got to stop and block. And I guess you could come to that, I blocked all your stuff, I was able to read you, and then you were able to read me. But usually someone's goofing up and you're taking damage, and there's cards that are just going to be doing damage and that you can't stop anyway. So it's solid. So if you are a board gamer and you don't like Munchkin, I still think you should maybe pick up a starter set of this. Just take it as a simple 2-player card game. Forget the whole collectible card game aspect of it. You can just get one of these and play it and try it out. I think that's a lot of fun. And if you have 2 of them, or there's actually 3 starter decks, so there's 6 decks. These are just the 2 I got. But there's 6 decks that you can play against each other and go back and forth. That's a lot of variety. And I like this one-on-one type player aspect and out bluffing the other person. I really enjoy that, so I think that's good. How does that fit into the bigger CCG? I don't know. Does the Munchkin theme help? I don't know. I mean, it's, again, Munchkin, the humor is funny once, and this game has that funny humor, but this one actually has a solid game behind it, as opposed to my personal opinions on Munchkin. And so I think that the theme here works too. I think the vanilla mental, a big giant ice cream cone, I don't know. So, unfortunately, I think a lot of people aren't going to play this or come near it because they don't like Munchkin, so they're not going to try it out. You shouldn't let that get in your way. Or they're like, I don't like the CCG model. Well, big deal. Just buy a couple starter decks and play with that. Forget the collectible card game. I will come back and take a look at the CCGs and look at building my own decks. I'll be doing that in a future episode of the Dice Tower Reviews. But for now, with these starter decks, I thought it was a pretty fun game. Dice Tower Judgment approved!
Thanks so much for watching the Dice Tower videos. Find more great videos and reviews, as well as our top-rated audio podcast at Dicetower.com. You can also find other great shows at Dicetowernetwork.com. I'm Eric Summerer, and you've been watching The Dice Tower. The Dice Tower is sponsored by Cool Stuff Inc., where you can find great games for great prices. Cool stuff in stock. Check them out at coolstuffinc.com.
Shut the door.